There's a moment, and if you've ever witnessed it, you know exactly what I mean, when a man who has everything suddenly finds himself wanting something he can't quite name. It's not triggered by beauty, though beauty may be present. It's not triggered by wit, though she may be brilliant. It's something quieter than that. Something that moves beneath the surface of every glance, every pause, every word she chooses not to say. She doesn't announce herself. She doesn't need to, and that right there, is where it all begins. Wealthy men are not like other men in one very specific way. They have spent years learning to recognize what is real and what is performance. They've been flattered, pursued, curated for. They've seen women transform themselves into whatever reflection they thought he wanted to see. So when a woman walks into the room fully herself, not performing, not adjusting, not scanning the room for his reaction, something in him shifts. He notices, not because she's trying to be noticed, because she isn't. This is the first paradox, and it's worth sitting with for a moment. The less she needs his attention, the more urgently he wants to give it. Plato understood something about desire that most of us intuitively feel, but rarely articulate, that longing sharpens in the presence of distance, that we reach toward what seems just beyond our grasp. Nietzsche, in his more unsentimental way, made the same observation, that what costs nothing is worth nothing, at least in the economy of the human heart. These aren't abstract philosophical points. They describe something that plays out in real interactions, in real time, between real people. The woman who has mastered this, not as a strategy, but as a lived reality, becomes genuinely magnetic in a way that calculated charm never could be. Because here's what most people misunderstand. This isn't about games. It's not about pretending to be unavailable or engineering some kind of emotional obstacle course. It's about actually being complete. Actually having a life that doesn't require his presence to feel full. That fullness is what he senses. And it unsettles him, pleasantly, compulsively, in a way he may not even be able to explain to himself. Mystery, when it's real, doesn't feel like withholding. It feels like depth. There's a difference between a woman who refuses to reveal herself and a woman who simply has so many layers that full revelation would take a lifetime. The second kind is the one he can't stop thinking about. She shares enough to captivate, a thought that surprises him, a story that hints at a life richly lived, a moment of genuine vulnerability offered without drama, but never so much that the picture is complete. The incompleteness isn't a manipulation. It's just the truth of a complex person, and complex people are rare. What she communicates subtly. A well-timed pause in conversation that says, without saying it, that she is thinking, really thinking, about what she wants to say next. A smile that arrives a half second after everyone else's, because she found the joke funny, rather than because she felt she should. Eye contact that doesn't flinch, but doesn't perform either. These things are small. They are also everything. A man who has navigated boardrooms, negotiations, the careful social theater of wealth, he reads subtext instinctively. He knows the difference between a woman who is confident and a woman who is acting confident. The former fascinates him, the latter exhausts him. There is something particular about financial independence that deserves to be named honestly. For a man who is accustomed to being needed, sometimes genuinely, often instrumentally, encountering a woman who quite plainly does not need his resources is almost disorienting. Not unpleasantly so. She has her own work, her own ambitions, her own account, her own sense of where she is going. She isn't asking to be included in his life. She is considering whether to include him in hers. That inversion, quiet, never stated aloud, changes the entire dynamic of pursuit. He's no longer the one being courted, he is the one doing the courting. And for a man like him, that is both unfamiliar and deeply compelling. Her social world reinforces this. She has friendships, influences, interests that exist entirely outside his orbit. She is not an extension of his status. She has her own. And while she may invite him to step into her world occasionally, she is never waiting at the edges of his. This is what social independence actually looks like in practice. Not coldness, not indifference, but a genuine fullness of life that makes his presence a welcome addition rather than a structural necessity. Now there's something worth acknowledging here, something that tends to get lost in conversations like this one. None of this works if it's hollow. If it's constructed, a man of real experience will detect performance within minutes, sometimes within seconds. The principles being described here only carry their full weight when they emerge from an actual inner life, from real self-knowledge, real values, real emotional intelligence, which means the most important work is never about how to appear. It's about who to actually become. An emotional intelligence, genuinely knowing herself, her boundaries, what she will and won't tolerate, what she actually wants, is what gives all of this coherence. She doesn't engage thoughtlessly. She doesn't overshare in an attempt to create closeness, and she doesn't withhold coldly to create distance. She calibrates, naturally, because she has a genuine relationship with her own interiority. She knows when to open a door and when to simply stand near it. He can feel that calibration even if he couldn't name it. It makes every conversation feel like it matters, because for her, it does. The timing of her attention is itself a kind of language. This is perhaps where psychology and lived experience converge most clearly. Schopenhauer observed, and behavioral science has since confirmed, that desire intensifies when it must be pursued, that anticipation is itself a form of pleasure that becomes addictive. A response that arrives instantly, always, at any hour, communicates something. Not necessarily the wrong thing, but something. Whereas a response that arrives when she has something genuine to say, that communicates something entirely different. Her attention feels like a gift because it is given with intention, not reflexively dispensed. Her conversations are not performances of intelligence, they're just intelligent. She asks questions that require him to think, not just to answer. She offers perspectives he hasn't considered, not to impress, but because they genuinely occurred to her. She knows when to be funny, and she knows when to be still. She doesn't fill silences out of anxiety. Silence for her is not a problem to be solved. It's just a pause between two people who are actually present with each other. Unpredictability, and this is subtle, is not the same as inconsistency. Her values are consistent. Her character is consistent, but her expression is alive, variable, surprising in small ways that keep him leaning in. One evening she is warm and opens easily. Another she is slightly more interior, thoughtful in a way that makes him want to know what she's turning over in her mind. She is not performing either state. She is simply a full person whose mood reflects a rich inner life. And that variability, in the context of her underlying stability, is precisely what keeps fascination from becoming familiarity. Boundaries, when they come from self-respect rather than strategy, have a particular effect on men who have spent years having their boundaries negotiated away by others. She simply has limits. Things she will not do, conversations she will not have, compromises she will not make. Not dramatically, not as a test, just clearly. And that clarity, that quiet refusal to dissolve herself for his comfort, does something unexpected. It makes him respect her. Then it makes him want her. Then it makes him work. And the working, the real effort he finds himself voluntarily making, deepens his investment in ways that ease never could. Carl Jung wrote about individuation, the process of becoming fully oneself, as the precondition for genuine love. It's a sophisticated idea, but its practical application is almost simple. A woman who has done this work, who knows who she is and lives accordingly, is magnetizing in a way that a woman still assembling herself from external approval simply isn't. She is already whole. And wholeness, in a world of people performing their way toward acceptance, is extraordinary. What all of this builds toward, the presence, the independence, the subtlety, the complexity, the emotional intelligence, the boundaries, is something that can only be described as a particular quality of engagement. He is not just attracted to her. He is invested. He is thinking about her when she isn't there. He is trying, perhaps for the first time in a long time, and finding that the trying feels good. Because the pursuit is meaningful, the connection feels earned, and what feels earned feels valuable in a way that effortless acquisition never does. She doesn't manufacture this. She inhabits it. And in the inhabiting, in that quiet, complete, apologetic inhabiting of her own life, she becomes exactly the kind of woman that a man who has everything finds himself somewhat helplessly wanting to know. Not because she made him feel that way, because she was simply wholly herself. And perhaps that is the deepest truth beneath everything explored here. There is no technique powerful enough to replace genuine selfhood. No timing strategy, no carefully engineered mystery, no choreographed independence that can substitute for the real thing. What draws a man of real substance, a man who has learned to see past surfaces, is not a woman who has mastered the art of attraction. It is a woman who has mastered the art of herself. That is the conclusion that most conversations like this one never quite arrive at, because it's uncomfortable in its simplicity. We want formulas. We want steps. We want something to do. But the woman who becomes truly unforgettable to a high-value man isn't doing anything. Not really. She is simply so fully occupied with her own becoming, her work, her growth, her standards, her life, that his attention becomes a natural consequence rather than a pursued outcome. The irony is quiet but profound. The less this is about him, the more it draws him in. So if there is one thing worth carrying forward from everything here, it is this. The most magnetic version of you is not a version constructed for someone else's consumption. It is the version that exists when no one is watching, certain, purposeful, and completely at home in herself. Build that woman. Invest in her. Protect her. Everything else follows.